George Soros down here somewhere. You know? Well, quite. You've got a bright future in headline writing ahead of you. There we go. Just imagine the leaders of Europe through all of its glorious centuries. Charles Martel, Charlemagne, Richard the Lionheart. Imagine what they would make of the actions of Angela Merkel. I'm surprised the very ground of Europe hasn't been torn asunder by knights of yesteryear wresting themselves from the dirt, rising up in horror and pain at what she has done. Now, the reason that hapless women this hapless woman up here made her mistake is that she assumed that Islam had changed. She assumed that the sorts of historical forces that have led to Christianity changing, becoming adaptable to modern fashions, whether it's political fashions or social fashions or whatever. I mean, for instance, you'll never hear a Catholic bishop talk about God. He talks a lot about climate change and diversity, but you'll very rarely hear them talk about God. Now, that's sort of excessive because the Catholic Church, I mean, we invented social justice, I'm sorry to tell you. But, you know, all Christians are, you know, have this sort of, on the one hand, a sort of embarrassing failing, but on the other, a kind of a strength, which is sort of infinite malleability and adaptability to modern circumstance. And of course, capitalism couldn't have survived without Christianity. Couldn't have existed, couldn't have grown without Christianity. It was the Protestant work ethic that made capitalism possible. But Islam hasn't gone through that same journey, and making the mistake that all religions have gone through that journey is what most European leaders are doing, and what she did in particular. Now, Father James Shaw of Georgetown University chronicled this as part of his brilliant work on the culture clash with Islam. It was called Belloc on the Apparently Unconvertible Religion. Now, Father Shaw observes that in 1938, when Western intellectuals thought Christianity was over, thought it was basically done, like there would be no more Christians for a while, and Islam was even more dead because it apparently perished with the Ottoman Empire, that Hilaire Belloc, one of the great thinkers of our intellectual history, had other ideas. And Belloc wrote in The Great Heresies, "Men of foresight may justly apprehend, or at any rate expect, the return of Islam." And why? Well, because foolish people assume that Muslims' backwardness in material things like modern science dooms the religion as a force. There is no world-class university anywhere in the Muslim world. Not one. Anywhere. Anywhere. Any Muslim country, there is not a single university you would want to move to. There's one you might end up in. Not one you would move to. There are nuclear physicists in Pakistan who believe that the equipment they have bought from overseas to run their nuclear reactors is powered by fairies. Not. Nothing wrong with gay scientists. No, jinn, D-J-I-N-N, jinn, a sort of the Islamic version of fairies in their particular religious culture. They believe that the nuclear reactors are run by jinn. The stuff they bought from elsewhere. This is the sort of standard in the Islamic world. Now, Belloc observes that in faith, we in the West have fallen inferior to Islam. He believes that we've fallen behind it. He knew that if we believe in nothing, if we're snowflakes who won't risk our reputation, much less our life, for any kind of objective truth, then we will fall in the face of fanatics who have stronger and bloodier beliefs than we do. The Christian kingdoms in Europe shouldn't have retaken Constantinople. The Christian kingdoms of Europe should have retaken Constantinople, but they didn't. Now, we must learn from their mistakes, and I think retake Europe before it's too late. Western civilization needs to get up off its ass before it is on its knees before Allah, or hurled off a roof, if they have the same dick-sucking predilection that I do. They're as gay as me. Don't you know there's a war on? Well, they do. And it's the worst kind of war, cultural or otherwise. It's the kind of war where only one side realizes there's a fight on. Think about the regressive left's infiltration of the university establishment. They've taken it over so completely that the emergence of peer-reviewed papers like The Perilous Whiteness of Pumpkins seems normal and important. I'm not joking, by the way. That's the actual title of a paper published in Taylor and Francis. This is the sort of thing that your academics concern themselves with, and this is 18th Amendment 2015. I mean, it's not a recent moment of madness. This is the kind of thing that American academics preoccupy themselves with. This is what they're talking about. And this is why Douglas Murray, who is another smart, charming British homosexual you should listen to, says that we will be fretting over transgender pronouns when the mullahs nuke us. He's not wrong. Now, openly racist lectures about white people are also a common sight on American campuses. This is an example from BuzzFeed, just from, I think, today, of the sorts of things that are often taught on American campuses. White people are a plague to the planet. Administrators, university presidents, faculty members all consider this to be completely normal, a perfectly reasonable line of academic inquiry. They don't register any objections. Well, me and Pepe the Frog are considered forces of bigotry. Some preposterously theatrical fag and a green cartoon frog on Twitter are considered hateful, while this beer is awful. Well, I heard they rebranded themselves America, but it hasn't made it taste any better. This is apparently a proper inquiry for American college campuses. Now, these pictures come from BuzzFeed, by the way, which praised these lectures. Praised these lectures. This was part of a series. You can see the number 9 over there. Part of a series in BuzzFeed praising these lectures for, quote-unquote, not giving a fuck. Not giving 0 fucks, actually, to be precise. This is how the culture war has gone with Islam. The West, particularly Western Europe, has remained aggressively and in some cases deliberately ignorant about what is happening on their once great continent. Do you think Muslims are ignorant of the culture clash? Of course not. It's been pounded into their heads since birth at mosques that continue to become more and more separatist. That it's drilled into them that Muslims, that Islam is something unique and something different. Now, well-meaning Americans, and this is where I'm going to get real with you, if anything I just said was not, wasn't extreme enough for you. There's a theological point that well-meaning, well-educated, nice Americans don't always understand. You assume because America hasn't experienced large volumes of working-class Islamic immigration, you presume that Muslims are just like, any other people, that Islam is just like any other religion. Christians can get along perfectly fine in non-Christian countries when they're not being executed by the locals. So why can't Muslims? Well, that's because there's something structurally different about Islam. Islam divides the world into the house of Islam, Dar al-Islam, and the rest of the world. And there is only really, 2 ways to treat the rest of the world, which is assimilation or extermination. And when you understand that about Islam, you realize that there is something structurally, intrinsically different about this particular religion that makes it wholly and completely incompatible with the modern progressive project of multiculturalism. And, of course, for other reasons, completely incompatible with freedom, democracy, property rights, capitalism, and all the other things that have made this country the best. I mean, this is the greatest country in the history of human civilization. America is the greatest country that we have yet produced in our species. Weaker countries fall more quickly to this stuff. Consider the case of Germany, which has become the textbook example of how Europe is falling to Islam. A recent study by Die Welt shows that immigrants no longer identify as German. They don't want to be known as Germans, and in fact many of them find that description insulting. They identify themselves as Turks or whatever country they come from, and above all else as Muslims. Germany has changed so much so quickly that even the aforementioned odious Angela Merkel, even she has started to realize what she has done. And suggested that maybe it would be a good idea if the full burqa wasn't seen on German streets. Well, too little, too late, good try, good luck, fat chance. You've already fucked your country. She's sort of floundering, panicking, desperately hoping that she hasn't done something irreversible. Well, she has done something irreversible. Germany's response to this trend only makes sense in a country where gang rapes of thousands of women in cities were underreported because the gangs were Muslim men. It's lucky we had so many fake news outlets to report the truth, isn't it? By the way, have you heard about this fake news thing? This is what CNN is pushing now. Fake news, which they will describe, vast right-wing conspiracies about, for instance, Hillary's health, except, oh wait, no, she was actually sick. All the other variety of weird and bizarre things that we weren't supposed to believe until they actually turned out to be true. Well, my definition of fake news is a little different, and conspiracy theory is a little different. There are two. That fake news is reporting on something ugly about our own friends. Conspiracy theory is a story we will not investigate for ideological reasons. Now, there are all sorts of things that you will hear about from the progressive press that you're not supposed to look into, that you're not supposed to take seriously because they're considered fake news or conspiracy theories. Well, what the press is telling you when they say these things, when they say fake news or conspiracy theory, these buzzwords, what should be set off in the back of your head is, we don't want to look into this because we might not like the results. We might not like the conclusions that you draw after you have access to the facts. Oh, Pizzagate. Should we talk about Pizzagate? Okay, all I will say... What's that? All I will say on this subject, because I do have a large talk on this plan that I want to save for when I've had a properly, when I'm less drunk. And just kidding. All I will say is, it's interesting, isn't it, that you've been lied to and about so much by the media, you're prepared to believe almost anything about Democrats. And the trust in the media has been brought so low. And the left's sinister pandering to pedophiles has become so blatant. If you've read Salon, it gives a platform to people like Todd Nickerson, this guy who says he's a virtuous pedophile because he wants to fuck kids but doesn't. The media has so debased itself that you're prepared to believe almost anything about the Democrats. I'm going to save it for a future talk, I'm sorry. But let's get back to the subject at hand. Sociologist Annabelle Treibel believes that it is Germans who should integrate into migrant cultures and not the other way around. Because it's our job to make the newcomers feel welcome. Other academics who see the idea of German culture as proto-fascist have called for mandatory Arabic lessons for all German children. So stupid. These attitudes don't sound, I'm sorry to tell you, too far away from the modern American left. After all, I'm not here speaking to you about Europe, only for the good of my beloved United Kingdom, because since we have Brexit now, we have a hope of saving ourselves from this absolute fucking horror show. But also because what's happening in Europe will happen in America soon, if you don't watch out. Now, electing Donald Trump was the best thing you could have done to head this off, and I hope that it has effect. But I've saved the best German leftist for last, and it's a vision of a horrifying future that is ahead of you if you don't take this subject seriously. Green Party member, it's always the Greens, Green Party member Kurt Edler proposed that Syrian asylum seekers shouldn't be expected to integrate in German society. It's asking too much. Instead, they should be given their own new city in Germany called New Aleppo. Oh, stop it! Refuse to believe that anyone in this room, anyone, even the progressive protesters who are hiding themselves at the back, I refuse to believe anyone in this room is as stupid as the Libertarian Party candidate for president. I think you all know. You all know where Aleppo is and what it is. They've so thoroughly destroyed old Aleppo, he wants to give them a new one to destroy. Now, Muslims know that Islam clashes with Western civilization. They make no bones about choosing Islam over their new home country, like Syrians in Germany or this nice Somali gentleman at Ohio State University. You know, I mean, I shouldn't laugh, but I can because the only person who died was him, thank God. Glad he's dead. But this is a guy who was studying microaggressions at university. and who said in August to a student media publication, he said, you know, something along the lines of, you know, I'm just really sick of being like typecast as a Muslim. You know, like every time people tell me I'm a Muslim, I tell them I'm a Muslim. People kind of like look at me a bit suspiciously. 3 months later, he was driving his car into 9 people. Somebody who has been encouraged by the insane politics of the progressive left to believe that he is a victim. And it wasn't a victim. It wasn't a victim. It was just a cunt. Now, Muslims are surprisingly open and honest in polls because they know they have nothing to fear from the governments who welcome them with open arms. I want to quote from a Pew Global poll from 2013 about attitudes in Islamic countries. The people of Islamic nations also believe that Western nations do not respect Arab or Islamic values. Good, we don't. They're crap. Do not support Arab causes. Good, we don't. They're crap. And do not exhibit fairness towards Arabs, Muslims, or in particular the situation in Palestine. Why should we? They're fucking terrorists. Some of those were quotes, some of those weren't. Some of you may not understand why I'm quoting a poll about Islamic nations when I'm talking about the West, but those are the people you're welcoming here. Muslims flooding into Germany and the rest of Europe aren't older or moderate Muslims from the United Kingdom or the United States. They're more radical, and they reflect the values and the morals of Islamic countries. One of the easiest ways to get a sense for Islam's habit of tightly controlling every land it takes over is attitudes around Sharia law. Now, Sharia law is Islamic religious law, which remarkable number of Muslims in the West believe should supersede the law of the country in which they live. In 2015, the Center of Security Policy commissioned a poll of Muslims in America. It found that 30% of American Muslims believe that it is legitimate to use violence against those who insult Islam. Let's be clear what that means. 3 in 10 Muslims believe that if you joke about Muhammad, they have the right to punch you. Or worse, shoot you, blow you up, as is their favorite method of... Oh, I mean, you know, in the West we have this sort of, long tradition of civilized debates. So, sir, I find your proposition unacceptable. Other places in the world, it's just... 30%. Not of Muslims in Saudi Arabia, not of Muslims in Aleppo, not of Muslims in anywhere else that you might have dimly heard of, that you might vaguely be aware of, but Muslims here, 3 in 10, believe that if you make a joke about Islam, they are justified in committing violent acts against you. 33%, and this is way more chilling, way more terrifying for you guys, said that Sharia should take precedence over the Constitution if they clash. So if, for instance, the First Amendment the First Amendment says you can be, do, and say whatever you want, but Sharia says insult Muhammad and you die, 1 in 3 Muslims believe you should die. Here. Not in Saudi Arabia. Here. According to a Wenzel Strategies poll in 2012, 58% of Muslim Americans believe criticism of Islam or Muhammad is not protected free speech under the First Amendment. That is to say, just about 60% of them think that I can't say I find Islam to be shit and be protected under the First Amendment. 45% that believe that those who mock Islam should face criminal charges. 12%, this is my all-time favorite, I mean I say favorite, this is my all-time favorite statistic about American Muslims, and I'm not sure it's even this bad in Britain or Belgium, and both of those places are pretty fucking terrible as far as Islamic attitudes go. 12% of American Muslims believe that Islam, that blaspheming against Islam, joking about Muhammad, or saying that Islam sucks, should be punishable by death. 1 in 10. These people live close to you. They study with you. Some of them might even teach you. 1 in 10. Death. 26% of young Muslims in America believe that suicide bombings are justified, because of course they do. It shouldn't surprise us, given everything that's happened. And 35% of young Muslims in Britain believe that suicide bombings are justified too. I mean, you're lucky. Only a quarter of your Muslims think that suicide bombings are all right. You're okay. A third of ours do. But you're okay. Only 1 in 4 of your Muslim friends think that suicide bombings are justified. My fucking God, what is wrong with you people? What is wrong with you people? You have not learned your lesson after 9/11. You have not learned your lesson after Orlando. You have not learned any of the lessons these people have been perfectly happy to teach you. Obama's welcoming in 12.5 Syrian migrants. They're not refugees, they're migrants. Thank you. In the dying days of his presidency, when he knows he can sort of get away with anything because people are paying attention to Trump and Hillary. 12,500. Not even the start. Imagine what's happening in Canada and how easy it will be for them to get over the border. All right, now the most important part, if that wasn't all horrifying enough. 45% of Sharia supporters surveyed disagreed with the idea that Islamic law should apply only to Muslims. So, what this means is 45% of people who believe that there should be Sharia law in the United States, that's half of them, every other one, who says that they like Sharia law, says that it shouldn't only apply to Muslims, it should apply to you too. So, women, could you stand up in the room, please? The girls, could you stand up? Lots of them. More women than are normally at my talks. Are you assuming their gender? No. No. I wasn't assuming anyone's gender. I asked ladies to stand up. They identified themselves as women. So fuck you. But yes, they are women because they were born with vages. Now, your testimony in court is worth half that of mine. That's what every other Muslim in this country who wants Sharia law enacted believes is reasonable and appropriate, and law inspired by the divine. Allah wishes it. Your testimony is worth half that of a man's. Progressives have the fucking gall to suggest that these people are victims, these people are deserving, that Islamophobia is a thing, that these people should be given special treatment over the women they oppress and the homosexuals they execute. Fuck Hillary Clinton and her pandering to gays at home whilst taking hundreds of millions of dollars from Saudi Arabia from people who believe this. I don't believe any of the people standing in this room. I don't believe any of their testimony is worth half that of a man's. In many cases, they may be more sensible than a man's. I don't believe that about women, despite my reputation as misogynist, because I don't happen to like a sort of crazy third-wave feminism. I happen to love women. Where would gay men be without women? We need you to go shopping. We need you to hang out with us. We need you to cry with us when our boyfriends leave us. I'm just kidding. I've actually never been dumped, just to say. But all the people I've dumped have needed women to... I don't believe that your testimony is worth half that of a man's. Nor do I believe that whipping and beating you is a perfectly reasonable response to bad behavior. No. Nor do I believe that you should be stoned to death for fucking someone else. You can sit down, thank you so much. Nor do I believe that either, but half of the Sharia supporters surveyed do think those things, and they don't just think that it should apply to Muslim communities, they think it should apply to you too. This is the sort of caliphate building I've been telling you about. This is the sort of stuff that I've been warning you about. Now, you can kiss goodbye to your bacon, by the way, because people who believe that Sharia law should apply to everyone believe that this sort of stuff should not be available no matter what faith you are. The good news is that according to CNN, You know, if you want to bring out your humanitarian instincts, the good news is that the only people coming here from Syria are needy women and children. The only people coming here from